Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay. So that
Then,
would
ma'am,
be
what's the
your.
difference between mother tongue and L1?
See, mother tongue can be L1. For example, my mother tongue is still my L1. Pashto language. My mother tongue is Pashto. Pashto language is still my L1, but it may not be L1 for my cousins who are living in Canada right now. Are you getting my point?
Okay.
Got it? Your mother tongue
Yes.
may change. Means your L1 may change. That is your mother. Sorry, your mother tongue will not change. Your L1 may change. So your mother tongue may not be your L1 forever. Got it? No, Manzoor, I have to take the class. Okay. Thank you for asking, though. Yes, clear about L1?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go towards language shift in different communities. There are different ways in which there is a language shift that comes in different communities. So we'll discuss migrant minorities or migrant majorities, or you know different types. If you have studied already this chapter, then it won't be difficult for you to understand what are migrant minorities. We as Pakistanis, or let's suppose Pashto speakers, when go to uh, other countries as a migrant minority, so in England or in Canada, there are communities where there are Pakistanis living, and or let's suppose Pathans are living over there. They speak Pashto, right? Their first language is Pashto. So uh, there's this shift which is occurring in other communities. Means they have there's this shift occurring if there is their second or third generation which is already living over there. So the second generation and the first generation, it will speak their own language in some communities, in some domains. That is, maybe at home they'll be speaking the same language, that is their mother tongue, which is Pashto or any other language. And then maybe as this second generation, maybe with their parents, they'll be speaking Urdu or Pashto or Punjabi. But then there may be a shift in the language. That is, the same uh, generation, when communicating to one another as a siblings, they would use English. Means siblings are communicating with one another, because in schools, the domain, there is this even first generation has to speak English, because they are in countries where they are minorities and they have to speak the language of majority, right? So in the communities, there is this slow and gradual change from, or shift from the language. And that happens because it's very obvious that you are moving as a migrant from your country where you speak one certain language, that is Urdu or Pashto, and then you go towards a country where you are migrating, and you are speaking in their language, because it is obvious that no one else is going to understand. We are going to study the factors, which is maybe political or social or demographic or other factors which are responsible for the language shift. But it is very obvious that if you're moving towards English speaking countries, so you have to it shift from your language to the other language in certain domains. For example, school, for example, marketplaces, or other places, for office, job places. You, in these domains, you change your language from your mother tongue to uh, but this is just a shift which is in certain domains. But a language shift which is permanently occurring, and occurring in different generations means it may occur from 3 to 4 generation. There will be a complete language shift. That is, even in the homes, the children would not be speaking their mother tongue, and they'll completely shift from one language to the other. For example, my cousins live in Germany, and that's their, I guess, third generation. Yes, third generation. And they don't know Pashto, they don't know Urdu, they only speak in German. And because English is not spoken over there, so only one of my cousins can communicate in English, and that too not very well. So this means that there is a complete shift. Now we cannot communicate with our own cousins due to this reason, because from generation to generation and to another generation, now they cannot speak. This is a language shift in the community living over there, in a Pashto community living over there, right? Are you clear? Are you clear about migrant minorities?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, should I go ahead? So we have then we have non-migrant communities. Non-migrant communities, it's not necessary that language shift would always occur when there is this migration towards you know uh, the other countries. It may happen because of the not because of the migration. It happens due to different political, economic, and social changes which are occurring in a society. So first I'll explain this to you, and then I'm going to ask you people this question, and you're going to give me an answer for that. For example, there's this community where they have given you the example of, here is the Irani situation, and the native speaker of Azari. This is a language. There's this Armenian. Armeen is an Iranian teacher of English, and he's concerned that Farsi, the official language of Iran, is displacing his native language Azari. One piece of evidence supporting his concern about Azari is that the streets of his hometown, Tabriz, are full of signs in the Farsi language. What is more, people are not taught to read and write in Azari, despite the fact that there is a rich literature in the language. Some of it housed in books and in the Tabriz library. So there is a vicious circle. People don't use Azari in the public science because they know that literacy in Azari is almost non existent. Can you relate this example to our community and give me an example? Anyone? Anyone, please? Are you all sleeping? Yes, anyone. Can you relate this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, who's this?
Ma'am, cannot.
Yes, Kainat, please relate this to our.
Ma'am, the same thing happened in our society as well, because in the most of the signboards and different instructions are given in English, not in Urdu or in Pashto language. The same in the same case happened in this example as well.
Hmm, okay. Though we are not completely shifting from our own languages to English, but it happened in our community, which is in with Hinko speakers. Hinko speakers have shifted um, from their own Hinko to the to Urdu, and the reason is because of the social changes occurring in our society, or political changes, because there is though they are not migrated, they are still living in the same area, but still there is this shift occurring. That is, there are in even in home domains, they have stopped using this language. And one of the reasons is the marriages as well. You know, if there is this if the marriages intermarriages are, you know, if the mother is Pashto speaker and the father is Hinko speaker, so that there is this shift in the language which is occurring. So in different communities, though they have not migrated, there can be a shift due to the political, economic, and the social changes, and there can be other changes as well. But majorly, political and social changes are responsible um, for this change. You'd see this. Can you see this table? Choice of language in Oberwort. If you see there's this shift from Hungarian to German, and this is like these are the speakers, and look at their ages: 63, 61, 58, 52, 27, 25, and 22. Now, in different domains, these are the domains, right, in which they are communicating. So if they are communicating to God, they all communicate in their mother tongue, I mean, in Hungarian. If they are communicating to the older people or the grandparents, they are communicating in Hungarian. If they are communicating to their parents, there is this shift. See, the age of 63, 61, 58, 52, and they are communicating to their parents in Hungarian. However, at the age of 27, they are using mixed languages, that is, they are using German as well as Hungarian. Same goes for the friends as well. You can see that the shift of the age in 58 and 52, it has started to shift to German and Hungarian, and when they are communicating to children, they have completely shifted. That is, they are not completely, but they are using both languages, German and Hungarian. And if they are communicating to doctors and government officials, which means that in the formal communication, it has completely changed to the German language. This shows that in certain domains you start changing in official domains, and then slowly and gradually with children, and then with friends, and then slowly and gradually with the parents, and then after that, even if your older generation is gone, you would stop using it. And once these people who are at age of 22 or maybe younger than them, they would stop even communicating in the same language with God. So this is how language shift occurs in any community which is not a migrant community, but due to a dominancy of one language, it may occur. Migrant majorities. Okay, now, technically speaking, when a community a community is shifting as a minority, we know that the dominant language has effect on that. Similarly, if a minority community has not migrated, they're still living in a place, but um, there is a majority, a community living over there, their communication is going to change. Even if they have not migrated, means their language is going to shift from one they are going to shift from one language to another. However, when we have certain situations in which we have majorities, due to which we have shift in the language, which is due to colonies, the colonial invasion, uh, the countries, which is obviously an English language. You have seen that there is a major shift in Pakistan and as well as in India, due to this being a colony, not just in these countries but in many other countries, where there are which are colonies, due to which there is a shift in a language. And that is why English is called as a killer language. Why is English called as a killer language? Because it's people are shifting from their own mother tongue to or their own languages to the other languages. And this is the reason which is because of which their own languages are endangered. And when their own languages are endangered, I mean, uh, it the languages are going to be lost, right? So it's not necessary that we always have migrant we always have majorities who are going to affect um, uh, the people who are migrated, but the majorities, even if a migrant is not a majority, if a migrant is not a majority, but they are more powerful, they may also have influence on the language which is spoken because of the political and the economic power of the people who are speaking English language, and because we were colonies. So because of that, there is this shift occurring, and there are many countries and many communities where there is this shift from one language to another, right? And when it has started in certain domains, like for example work domain and other domains, and slowly and gradually it shifts from this to the other domain. And you might have seen, though it is not it I would not label it as a language shift, but just as an example, you might have seen that in Islamabad, and the children of actors or actresses, you have seen that they have started speaking in English with their children. They don't know their own languages. For example, Punjabi and Urdu. They cannot speak Punjabi and Urdu. They are very weak at Urdu, very weak in their own mother tongue. They cannot speak Pashto at all. They cannot speak. They cannot speak. And I won't say Pashto. Maybe Punjabi, because Pathans. We are going to discuss this. They are very strict in this sense that this comes in a demographic factor, that is uh, Pathan community is very particular about their Pashto language, so they don't let their children shift in home domain, at least from Pashto to other languages. I don't know if you people agree or not, but I think it is like that. Anyone who disagrees with that, please? Yes, please. Can you hear me or not? Are you all
Ma'am,
sleeping? Yes. Yes, please.
ma'am, I think that if someone loves his own culture,
Yes.
then he will not shift to another language.
Yes, exactly.
Cultural ties are very important in this connection. Uh,
Yes, this comes under demographic factor. That is, people, if you are giving value to the language, then the people won't shift from one language to another. Okay. Uh, can anyone please tell me what is the difference between language death and language loss? Yes, please.
ma'am, in case of language death, uh, all the speakers
Yes.
when all the speakers of a language community die,
Yes.
then in that case we can say that it is language death.
Yes. And
In
language
case of
loss?
language loss, all the speakers shift to a new language. They
Yes.
acquire a new language and they forget their own mother tongue.
Yes. So, uh, language death, and there was in language death, remember that, one of my students, they wanted to do research, and they said that we want to do research on language death of Hinko. Language is not, I mean, Hinko would not die if people of Peshawar stopped speaking in Hinko, because Hinko speakers are present all around the world. There are many speakers of Hinko, not just here, but even you would find Hinko speakers in Kohat. You'll find, though they have, a bit of difference in their Hinko, but you have Hinko speakers there as well. So, language death means when the fluent speakers of a language, or proficient speakers of a language die, the last speakers of a language die. That would be called as, language death. Language loss, as was told by your class fellow, is when an individual, it can happen in community and it can happen also as an individual. So if an individual stopped or forgets about the language, as remember I told you about L1. So if your L1 changes, means you're forgetting your own language. I mean, not just your own language, but maybe a community has stopped using a language, so that is language loss in that community, or or in a specific individual's case. That would be language loss, right? So if you read this example, Ayapaniko is a language which is an indigenous language of Mexico, and a newspaper labeled it as language death because the last two remaining fluent speakers of that language stopped talking to one another. This means that if they are not talking to one another, and in Mexico, this community who used to speak this language were very stubborn. So it means that if they were not talking to one another, the last two speakers, the language is already dead, because if they are not speaking, means there is no speaker of that language left. So they labeled it as language death. This means that if there is no more speaker of that language, then the language dies. And there are many languages, indigenous languages, not many major languages, indigenous languages, which you can consider them as dead languages, because there are no more speakers of that language. And no one can speak that language, no one can read that language even. That is considered as language death. But if there's this shift in a language in one community, and then um, there is this but the language is not dead, you cannot consider it as dead. So for example, if someone goes to England and there is this community of Pashto speakers, and they stop using Pashto and they don't remember Pashto, language loss. But uh, it is not language death, because there are speakers of Pashto not only in this region, Peshawar, but in Karachi, as well as in Afghanistan. So we have Pashto speakers. It's not a language death, but it is just language loss or language shift in a specific community. Are you clear? Are you clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's what are the factors contributing to language shift, means why people shift from one language to another. We've already discussed economic we have already discussed economic, social, and political factors. I don't need to go into detail of that, because you people know what are economic, social, and political factors. Economically, if some country is strong, and whichever language they are speaking, that language is going to be considered as a important language, and that is why people would shift from one language to the other language, because they want to gain benefit from from speaking, gain benefit by speaking that language, or that is why there is this shift occurring. Similarly, there are different social factors, maybe because people are dominant in that society. That is why people would shift from one language to the other, and a community would shift from one language to the other, just like here in Peshawar. Or maybe a community doesn't consider one people speaking a specific language as they don't have a positive attitude towards them, or they don't consider them as good speakers, or they don't consider them as good people who are speaking in that language. So they would that could be the reason that they are shifting from that one language to the other language. It can be political reasons. It can be political reasons, maybe because um, some country, for example England, is was politically strong at that time, and that is why even now, and that is why we are using that language, means many countries are using English language. So political, economic, or social factors all are responsible for changing for the language shift. However, some reasons may lie in demographic as well. What is meant by demographic? Can anyone please tell me? Yes, please. Demographic. No one? Okay. Demographic is associated with age, or education, or maybe the characteristics of a person, if they are belonging to an urban area or a rural area. All these factors comes in demographic. So a language shift may occur due to demographic reasons as well. So if you see that a lot of people living in cities are shifting from their own languages to English, is the reason that they consider. Or maybe the educated class, highly educated class, or maybe highly rich classes, they are shifting from one language to another. That is, they are shifting from their mother tongue to English. This could be the reason for the shift in demographic factors could be responsible for the shift of a language shift from one language to another. Moreover, even intermarriages can also be the reason for shift from one language to another. This I've already discussed with you, just as an example of Pashto and Hinko speakers, that if there are intermarriages between different groups, so automatically there is going to be a language shift. You never know whose language is going to be dominant, but probably, I mean, in our society, mother's language is more dominant in when there is this intermarriages. So if the mother is Pashto speaker, so the children would be able to speak Pashto, and if the mother is Hinko speaker, so the children would be able to speak Hinko. I hope it is clear so far. Moreover, attitude and values are also one of the reasons due to which there is a shift in the language. So it can be, for example, you have positive attitude towards the language. For example, means Pakistani speakers, Urdu speakers, Pashto speakers, Hinko speakers, or Urdu speakers of Islamabad. They are trying to shift from one language to from their own languages to English, and that's because they have positive attitude towards English. I'm left with 10 minutes in this session. Okay, they have positive attitudes towards English because they think that, people would think positive about them, and they feel pride in that language, because you know it is impressive to speak in English, and if your children are also speaking in English with you, so it looks impressive, and that is why they speak in English, and they have shifted from their own languages to the other languages. uh, so attitude also plays an important role. How can a language be maintained? Maintenance can be done through many ways. If you start a campaign to maintain a language. For example, for Hinko, different organizations have started working in schools and colleges. The language should be taught as as a separate language, so that children are able to learn that language. Moreover, in TV channels or newspapers should be started in that in specific languages. And in order to maintain a language, it is also important that the people of that community should actively participate in that language, because if they are not willing to support, or if they are not willing to help in the maintenance of that language, then it is not possible to maintain a language. So as I've already given you the example that why Pashto speakers have not shifted from one language to the other, because they give a lot of value towards to their language, and that is the reason. So members of the community should always have a positive um, uh, a view towards maintaining their language, and that only then they'll be able to maintain uh, the language. Other ways to maintain a language could be, for example, starting newspapers or writing books in that. Or political support is also very important, because even if you start uh, you know uh, 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 teaching that language which you want to maintain in schools, for that you need political support. If there is no political support, then it's not possible to maintain a language. And it's like uh, the other Giles has also given certain points regarding the language maintenance, and he has given 3 points, three components, and that involves the status of the language as indicated by attitude towards it, as well as the size of the group who uses the language and their distribution. That is, are they closely living together or they are separate? So for example, if there are Hinko communities where they are living far far away from one another, so they should start living together. If they start living together, the language would be promoted, and in that way there would be language maintenance. And thirdly, the extent to which the language enjoys institutional support. Institutional support is the political support, or if it is given in the education, or taught in the schools, or maybe in the law and administration, in the media, in the religion, in different domains. That is in institutional support. So the language maintenance also depends on this factor, that how much is it supported in the institutions, that is law or administration. So Pashto is supported in our courts, but I don't know if other languages are supported or not. This is very important when it comes to maintaining a language. um, I hope you are clear so far. Clear? What is language revival? Yes, what is language revival?
Man, when the um, the language speakers
Mm.
are fighting for bringing their language back to the peak from the decline, or it could be even the culture, the community, or particularly the linguist, or those language
Yes.
who are, those people who are expert of those language. So when they are taking up to the peak from the bottom their language, like for example, government is playing its vital role to revive the Hinko language back, and even there are a couple of speakers from the Hinko language. They are opening different academies at multi cities of
Yes.
Pakistan. So basically, the step taken up by the government of KP, or might be even the federal government, they are taking a step and even giving people or the academies money, a kind of scholarship to come and join Hinko, learn and promote. So this is, it can be termed as language revival, because we want to see the
Yes.
language of Hinko back in the market, and we want to see the speakers back.
Yes. This concept is
Ma'am,
also, yes, 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 please.
ma'am, in simple words, it means that to develop a language so that it may be used for wider purposes.
Yes, so that it can be used for wider purposes. Or it is because we have already studied language shift. So, like bringing back the language to, or bringing back the people to speak the same language. That comes in language revival when a community has stopped using a language, or if the people see that language is their own language is in danger, and people have stopped using language, so they uh, they start reviving the language. Means reviving the language means that they start certain steps which are also in the language maintenance. They start using those steps, and they try to revive the language from either the language shift it has occurred, if it has occurred in first generation, second generation, or third generation. We also call it language revitalization, right? Language revitalization, this helps in increasing the, you start telling people um, that your own language is essential for your identity. So for example, if we start telling Hinko speakers that Hinko language is valuable to you, or this is your identity, and start bringing positive things about or start reinforcing positive things about their language, then this is language revitalization, which is also one of the steps in language revival. So um, you revive the language so that it may not die, or there is no complete shift in the language. Because if there is a gradual shift starts in one community, then automatically it will start in other communities, and there would be a time when the language would die. So in order to retain or maintain the language, or revive it in different domains, for example in schools, or in marketplaces, you start reviving the language, and you bring it back. Um, uh, so this is language revival. You bring the language back, you revive the language in different domains. So if it has been lost in home domain, people would encourage and bring positive views about their language, and associate it with the self-esteem, and associate it with their identity. I'm left with 1 minute in this session, okay? And I won't be able to take another session, so I guess we are almost done with it. So this is how they start reviving the language. This is a circle, and if you read it yourself, you'll understand. It is given by Spolsky, in which there are different domains of analyzing language maintenance and shift. And if you study it yourself, you'd be able to understand that how economic, political, institutional, demographic, attitudinal, educational, and all these sociocultural, all these factors are responsible for bringing a language maintenance and shift. And I'm going to share a document with you all. Kindly read it yourself, which is also associated with